Hello and welcome. This is Dr. Titch, and we're excited to come to you with Conversations at the Crossroads. You've heard the conversation in the country right now with all that's been happening and the statements made by the President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, about issues of substance abuse and the lockdown and how it has negatively impacted many relationships, marriages, people that have been abused, people that have been beaten, gender-based violence that has been on the increase. And when alcohol was then permitted to be on the shelves once again, people that were poisoned, that were hospitalized, and substance abuse that has been affecting many relationships. These are conversations that are necessary. And I have with me here in studio the head and the leader, one of the partners of Crossroads Recovery, and they're bringing us conversations at the crossroads so that we can have those conversations that are uncomfortable and maybe a lot of times would rather push it under the carpet and not talk about the real issues that we are facing in society. Taku, welcome. It is so good to have you today.
Thank you, Dr. Titch. Really appreciate the time and place to be here, and really looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful. I believe it's going to be meaningful, beautiful, and it's going to be liberating. I want you to quickly share just a little about yourself. We're going to go into more detail. Right. Share a little about yourself as an expert and as one of the recovery experts. Is that the correct word? Recovery experts or head of recovery and
treatment.
Head of treatment. There we go. Sure. At Crossroads Recovery. Just tell us a little about yourself and what you're doing and what is on offer.
Great. Thank you. About just about 8.5 years ago, I ended up on a windowsill, and I was at a point in my time I was suicidal. I got to the point where I felt what was best for myself and for everybody else was just I end it. So I have a history of substance abuse myself. And that's where it led me to a point where I knew I had to stop what I was doing, but I also knew deep down inside I couldn't stop. You know, I've had so many incidences along the way, from car accidents to being arrested, to hospitalized, many situations and consequences where, for most people think, if you ever go through that, that'll be it. Just stop. And truth be told, there were situations where I would come out of those type of consequences, and if you put me on a lie detector test, it registered that I was actually telling the truth. I had no intention of ever drinking again. And yet, a few months later down the line, I was back at it. And what became apparent to me was that, stopping is easy. What was difficult was staying stopped. And a lot of times people thinking about, you just need to stop, but, as I said, that's the easy part. You can stop every single day, everything. Every 5 minutes you stop. But can you stay stopped? And so I went through this whole experience of continually relapsing, and to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. And the lies and the shame and the guilt that just really built up got to a point where even at a time where alcohol just couldn't solve that anymore. At the beginning it did. It was wonderful. It could just get me out of myself. I'll be able to then really calm down, not have to think about things. But as it progressed in the later stages, even the drinking couldn't stop the voices, and I got to a point where I was like, I need to stop this, and that's what led me to a point where I thought,
you almost jumped out the window, killed yourself, took your life because you felt there was no hope.
Absolutely, there was just no hope. Just living such a hopeless situation. And I think at that point in time, I look back at my past and I thought everything was so regrettable. Things that I'd gone through, been through, done. And when I tried to look in the future, I couldn't see it. There just wasn't a future with my past. I just felt that at certain given points in time, my past was so big, it didn't allow for a future. And at that very present moment, it was all unbearable. So you talk about past, present, future, all of those are just ouch. I'm just like, I need somehow to stop feeling the way I was feeling. So I'll tell you this. I don't think I wanted to die, end up in a coffin. I just didn't want to feel how I was feeling, and I didn't know how to stop that.
Wow, that's quite loaded because, before I even get into the depth of that conversation, here's an interesting point I'm picking up. at the moment, as you went through what you went through, there was no picture of you ever being head of recovery.
No. There was no picture of that. You see, for me, I think I had a premonition I'll be dead by 25.
Okay.
And that being said, I think there was just something inside of me that just knew I wasn't equipped for life.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like everyone else, the day they got the memo of this, how you live your life and you do it, I missed that conversation, I missed the memo.
Yeah.
So I always knew that, you can't leave me too long unattended. I just kind of gravitate towards bad decision making, and therefore I just knew that there's no way I'm going to make it past 25.
Yeah.
The problem is I made it to 25 and then 26. So that plan hadn't worked, and I hadn't yet budgeted at all for
what happens after 25.
Yeah,
what happens after all of this? Yeah.
Like, I could see where other people going their lives, and I was like, okay, cool. I guess that's the process to get there.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going there, so I didn't pack my bags for that trip. And then 26, 27 came, 28 came, and I was just like, geez, I'm still here, and I'm not equipped.
Yeah.
And that was part of the despair.
So this is what we're all about at Conversations at the Crossroads. Is there hope for somebody who's hooked on drugs, substance abuse, alcohol addiction, even violence, gender-based violence? You're beating people, you're in a relationship that is abusive. Is there hope? Is there a way out? Is there a possibility of ever being free? Well, we have a living story right here in the studio in Conversations at the Crossroads. This is Taku Mhonyera, one of the leaders and owners of Crossroads Recovery Centre. His personal story is going to change your life. You're going to learn how to get out of the situation that you're in, how to get out of the cycles of thinking I can get out and stay free, and then you find yourself the guilt, the condemnation, the pain, the trauma that goes along with this whole experience. So stay connected, stay tuned, and you will never be the same. Now we want to go into the detail of this story. I want to hear, how did it all start? How did you get introduced into all of this, the substance abuse? Did it start off as, I've got it on my goals, goal number one, get addicted and get myself in trouble?
No, and then funny that you put it that way. One of the things though was, I always grew up and I knew I was going to do blood. I never had that aversion to it. I never thought, geez, this is not something. Like, the first time someone bought it for me was like, here's a bottle to drink. And I was like, cool, let's do it. The first time someone came with marijuana and said, let's smoke, I was in. It didn't take me long. You didn't need to convince me much. So I was about, 13?
13?
Yeah, my first drink. But I think maybe to go back and use that word trauma, and possibly that. I've always been a person who's quite anxious. I don't know if nails still bite to my nails. I just have this anxiety, and when I had my first drink, it was the first time I just felt at ease. I didn't need to bite my nails. It was just, okay, this is good. And I felt like this is normal. Before that, I just felt like I didn't fit in or something of that nature. But as soon as I had that drink, it was like, wow, it was great. And I was like, yeah, this is the way. So when everyone else was like about 13, 14, were playing computer games, I was like, no, this is life.
Yeah.
I knew how to tap into something. So if I had a couple of drinks in me, instantly I'd grow taller, I get wiser, more sophisticated. I'm at ease. I'm at ease. The ease that I've seen other people have, I'm like, how do you get that? And I found the solution to it.
Yeah.
So the beginning was the solution. So I was in. I could do well at school if I wanted to, but I had other social commitments.
And were your parents aware of what you were going through at that time as a 13-year-old?
Okay, I don't know. In that totality, my parents got divorced when I was 10, and I don't know if it impacted me immediately, but I remember later on in time when I started getting in trouble, I used that as an excuse.
Yeah.
So like, I got divorced and I have to go here and I have to go there. I used it as an excuse.
Okay.
But maybe it did actually have an impact. Because it was kind of moving around there and there. And once again, for someone who's anxious, certainty is quite a thing I'm looking for. And I didn't maybe have that at that point in time. So, they didn't know it at 13, but I was never a stranger for mischief. So there was always mischief around my life. And And I think about 16, I think that's when they kind of start saying, the drinking is something, the smoking. But I don't think they were ready actually to also.
So, do you think had there been, whether it was mom or dad, one of the parents being involved in the process from the 13 years when you got into it, do you think there would have been a quicker way of you getting out? Would it have helped to have a sense of stability or some parental involvement in your life?
It's possible. It's possible. In the sense that we're having these conversations. I never had those conversations with my parents, And funny enough, when I go speak at schools or otherwise, one of the questions I'm always asked is, what could we do? Can we speak to them? Because parents are always like, I wish my kids would speak to us. And one of the questions I also ask parents is, do you speak to them? Are you able to speak to your child and say, listen, right now, I'm afraid. I don't know what's going on. This could turn out this way, and we don't know what's going on. So for a lot of times, I think as a child, you look at your parents with this idea of perfection. And we take for granted how much, under the water, the legs are padding way hard. But they've got this sense of, they've got it figured out. So most of the times, I think what happens is you look at them and say, they've got it figured out, so you need to get it figured out. I never had that conversation with my mom saying, okay, even when they broke up, there wasn't panic, everything was so cool, calm, and there was no other conversation that I had and said, okay, what happened, all this kind of stuff. It just kind of, you need to know what you're doing and move on. So I think somewhere in my psyche, I had this idea that I just have to figure it out.
Wow. So you realize the situation that as parents, sometimes we don't connect well. I like the question. Besides the children reaching out to the parents, the bigger question is, do parents reach out to the children? How well connected are we? Especially in this busy world where we're trying to make money as parents, we're trying to fix everything, and social media is bombarding us. So we get home, there's no conversations, there's no way to see that your child has got red eyes or some signs. I don't know if there's any signs, we'll get to that in the future. There's signs, telltale signs that parents can look at and say, it looks like my child is no longer the child that I knew a month ago because of what they're getting themselves involved in. But so your story began to spiral out of control from 13 up until you found yourself in school, in university. That didn't work out. Tell us the journey up until your first behind the bars experience.
Well, my first almost behind the bars experience was I'd gone to Zanzibar. I'd come back. My mom was working in trying cocaine the first time, and I was away for 72 hours. Okay. And I ended up driving and passed out on the steering wheel. And some mischievous tree jumped on the road and ended up in the hospital. I mean, it was reckless endangerment, and so many things could have happened. But thank God, no one else was harmed. And I think that was me at 18. And I think that was the first time I could have really looked at it. But I was 18. I was bulletproof. I was like, this is part of the whole story of how I survived these things and so forth. So that was the first one, and I missed it. I totally missed how fortunate I was. I just thought I was strong. Then the next one was I was in America. I went gone to America to go study officially. But once again, I don't think I had this idea of saying, I'm going to be here for 3 years, get my degree, then I'm going to go to this place and I'm going to do this. My thing was just, I got there, I drank those 40 ounces and I'm like, right, I'm here. I remember calling back home, telling my friends, I'm like, listen, I'm here, I'm drinking this 40 ouncer and so forth. And that's how I knew it, because my mom even said to me, before I left, she said, beware the company you keep and the lifestyle choices that you make. Yeah. And it's like instantly, I left the friends in Zimbabwe and I made the same friends in America. It's like, you drink, cool, you smoke, you like girls. Those are my kind of people. I gravitated towards them and we did that. And in 2003, New Year's Day, called a friend of mine. We just used to have very casual sexual relations. And came through lots of tequila, lots of marijuana. We had a good time. We're downstairs, my sisters upstairs, and some point in time, a stepsister comes in, and I was about to stop, but she said, "No, come on through." So I'm like, "Wow, this is gonna be the best here. I mean, what a story I'm gonna have to tell, tomorrow." And they left, came back, and there was like $50 missing, and came with some guys and started fighting these guys, and we ended up at the police station. And I was about to report what had happened, and before I could report, the captain comes and says, "You're under arrest." I'm under arrest? Me? And I said, "Yeah, double rape." Double rape? Oh, okay, that's crazy. Like, I can't rape two women at the same time, silly story. And before I knew it, been locked up. And the morning, I'm in front of the judge, and it's $10,000 bill.
Wow.
And things get real. When I got to America, and this is one of those things, I think if I'd been an American citizen, possibly I'd have joined the army. As I said, part of me always kind of understood I need structure in my life, not to be left unattended too long. And here I was now, not in the army, but in jail. And that becomes that structure.
The structure,
imposed. And I was frightened. I mean, 20 years old, in jail, and the charge is rape, double rape.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about trauma. 1 minute you're in a glorious situation, next minute you're in this dead situation.
Yeah.
So eventually my mom was able to post bail, got out, and this was my first experience of what's called forced sobriety. Because I had to go and do pee tests, make sure I wasn't drinking or smoking or anything of that nature. So prior to that, I actually felt, I used to think I was quite extrovert. But then I actually realized the reason was because I had the juice. Without the
so
juice,
the substance made you extroverted in your personality.
Right.
Yeah.
But without the juice, I was a frightened, timid human being. And eventually the court proceedings were happening, and no sense of forced entry and all this kind of stuff. But what happened was the sister was a minor.
Okay.
And there was no defense against that.
Yeah.
So they used to sentence in indecent assault on a minor, and had a suspended sentence. And I think about a month later, immigration came and picked me up. And then the deportation process, that was about 10 months now in jail. Now the strangest thing that happens now is, in those 10 months was the first time I ever grew my nails. I found peace in jail.
Wow.
And I think part of the reason was, as I said, I didn't have that self-will doing as a please with things.
Yeah.
And another thing, I was very close to God. In jail, instantly. It was just...
Who else was there?
Of course.
God was there in jail with you.
I gotta go those Daniel experiences. I'm in the fire, I need you every single time. And that was the strangest point in time, that's actually when I grew my nails. And part of it was when I was in jail, I think it dawned upon me, I was like, you know what, I get what my mom was trying to say to me. I really understand it now. That I have to be wary around the choices that I make.
Yeah.
And I was convinced, one of the things was when I was going back, when she came to visit me, we did the whole thing on like television, and I was just like the movie thing that I wanted, but not like this. It's just something you see on the movies, but And I was thinking, all right, cool, I'll go back home to them. I was very clear, no more drinking. No more drugs, because things get out of hand, and this is part of what happened.
Yeah.
And about 2 months, and then 21, I'm back in Zim.
Yeah. Wow, what an amazing journey in terms of encounters, both with the law, with substances, with wrong behaviors that eventually begin to knock at your door and knock some sense back into your head. And I think this journey and this story relates child, it could be your son, your daughter, it could be your dad that's going through this, or maybe your mom. It could be a whole family facing pressure, pain, constant violence. Whenever the alcohol comes in, the substances that are being abused come in, things get out of control. Here is a story, and by the way, we are in Conversations at the Crossroads and talking about the real issues on the ground. A man with a story that will probably make an amazing movie one of these days. But Taku, tell us, the recovery process, fast forward now to the recovery process. How did that start? What made you eventually confront this and say no more? Was it maybe a near-death experience? What woke you up to the realization that I've got to really cut ties with this stuff?
Well, and strangely enough, as you talk about, at that point in time I'm 21, right? Mm-hmm. I only get to recovery at 28. Mm. I would like to say that was the last time I ever experienced something of that magnitude, of that kind of, well, definitely of that magnitude. However, there were other issues out of control, and it just kept building up.
Yeah.
By the time I got to rehab, on the day, it happened.
What prompted going into rehab? Was it?
So here I am now, at a point where, as I said, the alcohol stopped working. Mm-hmm. At one point in time, it was a solution, and then it became a problematic solution.
Okay.
To some extent, I know God is the answer, but to some extent, I also feel that I'm now gone too far. Mm. That even if God was to know where I'm at, I'm in big trouble. I'm going to be in big trouble. Mm. So, alcohol's not working, the God thing's not working, I'm all over. Mm. On the day I went into treatment, it wasn't so much the alcohol, but it was literally I didn't have any more lies to tell. Mm. That's what brought me to that point where I couldn't say, no, it's bad luck. Mm. Or witchcraft. It must be witchcraft. Somebody's out there doing something.
There was no one else to blame.
Yeah, I've tried that one, I've and I just realized, like, no, dude, it's not anything, it's you. Mm. And you've come to the end of yourself. Mm. And at the point in time when my girlfriend saw me at the window, and she asked me, she said, what are you doing? And that was the first time I told the truth, which was, I don't know what I'm doing. Truth be told, I actually don't know. I'm pretending, going out in this world, laughing, smiling, and whatnot, like I know what I'm doing, but I actually don't know. Mm. So I called my mom and said, listen, Mom, truth be told, I don't know how to cope with life, and I've been drugging and drinking. So I think at that point in time, she was the one who suggested go to treatment. Mm-hmm. I thought about it, but at that point in time, I thought that's for white people. It's white people who go to rehabs and whatnot. That mentality.
Yeah.
And, as I speak about it, I could have died on that day because I wasn't able to ask for help. Mm. And I didn't know how to surrender. Mm. The minute I surrendered and asked for help, everything changed for me.
So what would you say? Speak to somebody right now who is probably at the end of their road. They're at the end. Everything's falling apart. Their marriage is what the wife has just left home. The children have left home. Social services has taken their children. Speak to that person right now. What steps, just like you're saying, you came to the end of your road and you could have been dead and not alive today, had you not had that place of saying, let me get up and realize I don't know. I'm pretending like I've got it all together. But speak to that person right now in terms of the steps that they need to take to get themselves into rehab.
Well, the fact of it is you're going to have to make a phone call. One phone call. One difficult seeming phone call that then opens up the doors to a whole new life. Mm. Though I didn't die on that specific day, something had to die about me. And part of that was the idea that I can do this by myself. I'll prop myself up. I've got this. I'm a man. I'm in need to, fix this and all this kind of stuff like that. Rehab is for sissies and all this kind of stuff like that. You're going to have to let go of some old ideas that are going to hold you back. Today we don't use CDs, and when was the last time you had a CD? It becomes an old idea. Mm. In the future that you want to live, you have to let something go. And one of those things, I'll tell you, as they've always said, is pride comes before the fall. you're going to have to, at some point in time, level that pride and look inside and do that real self-searching, not others searching and saying this is what the problem is, and look inside and say, where are you? You've got to this point, you've been the driver, you drove the car to this point, and you can't do it anymore. Okay? So it might come down to that point in time where you're going to have to ask for help. So that a lot of things can then change and the journey can then begin.
So that was your turning point.
Yeah, phone call.
Phone call.
Ask for help. Say, truth be told, hand up. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That humble place where you can actually just say, guys, actually, I have no clue what I'm doing.
Okay, so tell me, I know we're going to get, in the next couple of sessions we'll get into the detail of the process of recovery and some of the things that go along, like the suicide thoughts, the depression, the shame, the fear of talking about and coming out in the open about what you've been through, etc. But talk to us about Crossroads Recovery Centre. Can people make that phone call? I know we've got the email address and the number just up here on our screen. Tell us that process. How does that go?
Cool. So, I mean, you use the word can. That's the easiest thing. Everyone can.
Everyone can.
It's will you do it. You know, can is just the ability to be able to take a phone and dial a number.
Yeah.
The number is there. Can is that.
Yeah.
The will you do it. Are you going to be able to get over your fear of, you know, the judgments and all this kind of stuff? That's the motivational part. And sometimes, most of the times, it might not be you who's going to make that phone call. It might be a family member. Because the denial is so prevalent that for some people, they just won't get around to that. But as a loving mother or father or brother or lover, sometimes that might be your situation is you've tried everything. You've tried to drive me. You've spoken to me nicely. You've called uncle. And that uncle comes and is an authoritarian, and you've done the beating, you've done all those type of things. And part of it is them not possibly that, you know, as a person you also understand your own powerlessness over someone else. Yeah. And that normally also prompts the idea to say, look, you've tried all these other things. Maybe it's now time that you also pick up the phone. So it might not be you, you know, but it might be your loved ones who can see, obviously, that you can't see at that point in time. I always say to myself, a week before I went into treatment, you could have told me the same thing, Dr. Titch. You said, Taku, listen, your life is a mess and, you know what, you need help. It would have flown over my head a week before. The same thing. 24 hours before that time that I was there, you would still say, Taku, listen, your life is a total mess, you need help. It still flew over my head. At some point in time on that specific day,
that's the crossroads.
That's when it happened. Boom. Then all of a sudden, you know, the eyes open, the ears open. Now it's like, what do we say? All of a sudden, now like, geez, why didn't you tell me this before? And I have to always accept that for many people, that's part of the journey is until you can see, you can't see. And until you can't hear, you can't hear. So sometimes it does take the nudge from the loved one to say, listen, I'm going to phone, I'm going to look for this number, Crossroads, you give us a call because that might be the starting point. Whilst your loved one might still be in denial. It's like, no, you've the problem, you know, it's your fault, and if you had done this, all this kind of stuff like that. So life is a team sport. Sometimes it's going to take someone else to make that phone call as well. Wow,
that's beautiful. So if you are facing a relative, I like what you said earlier on, all of us are either infected or affected.
Right.
So if you're the one who's infected, you're struggling with substances, you're finding yourself getting into moods, going into all kinds of cycles because of substance abuse, you can make the call. The number is available, the email is available, our website is available. Get in touch with us and we will be able to help you. Or maybe you're not infected, but you are affected. Your uncle, your mom, your dad, a relative, somebody is on the breaking point. This could be their crossroad moment right now. You can get in touch with us. You can call on the number that is on the screen and get in touch. We will take you through a process. And like we said, Taku is the head of treatment. They go through a whole process. It is a 28 minimum 28-day process of taking you through a journey of dealing with yourself. They've got the 12 steps that have helped many people recover and come out of the situation and become human beings that are able to integrate well with society. So you could be going through that either as an infected one or as an affected one. You need to get in touch. Give us a call and we'll take you through a journey of recovery. You don't need to remain there. You don't need to just become ashamed of what you're going through, embarrassed at what you've been through, you can come out. There is hope. Here is Taku, whose personal story is an amazing journey of pain, shame, humiliation, discouragement. But today, because of the freedom that he has received, he can bring others to the crossroads too. This is Conversations at the Crossroads. Dr. Titch here, speaking with Taku, an amazing man who's come on an amazing journey and married now, happily married, and doing great, growing the business, an entrepreneur. Everything that had been written off in the previous chapters of his life has become a reality. So your story can change. Your son's story can change. Your husband's story can change. Your daughter's story can change. Welcome to Conversations at the Crossroads. Stay connected and you're going to learn the journey that you need to go through in order to become the victor over the situation. Any closing remarks for this session, Taku?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you were talking about, the story can change. Mm-hmm. I think, that is part of it, but the first part of it is the story that can't change and what you do then.
Yeah.
So I can't change my past.
Yeah.
So there's that story that I also have to come to terms with and say, yes, it happened. And as we were speaking early on, and you said, one of the healing, the gifts of healing is to be able to be okay with that story. Where before, back in the day, I wouldn't even want anyone to know what I just spoke about. It's not something you'd want anyone to know about, because that, in my mind, would disqualify me from a lot of things, even to be in a place like this. So we have to also look at that story that can't change and see how we can look back at it now in a meaningful way. So that same story that was once shameful, today it's useful and it's usable.
Yeah.
And that's part of the whole process. And
that's
now,
beautiful.
Whatever happens in front, whatever, it's a blank sheet of paper that we can write a new story. But the first part of it is we had to make peace with the old story. And I had to be okay and say, yes, that's who I was. It didn't then become, that's who I'll always be.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So that means for those that have come out, for those that have recovered, but still you're dealing with the old story, there is a journey to coming out of the pain, of the shame, of the humiliation of the old story. Thanks for joining us today on Conversations at the Crossroads. We're taking you on a journey to recovery. It's possible and it will happen for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you in the next episode.